Alright, so, this time, I have just watched the Garbage Pail Kids movie. Yikes. This is no longer on the bottom 100, although I couldn't tell you why. This is a bad movie. It's based on something inherently plotless, when apparently this is like trading cards of some sort. It is before my time, apparently. In any case, somebody thought that this was popular with the kids, therefore it must make a good movie. And this is just a thoroughly obnoxious, unpleasant to the eye, just nothing. There's nothing to it. It is, again, that's really what kills me here. There's not really a lot of writing to go into it. In fact, most of the scenes with the horrifying puppet creatures, they almost feel improv. They're just so poorly executed or written. Again, it feels like improv. Like, it feels like they're just trying to come up with something off the top of their heads. Which, I don't know, maybe some of these scenes were improv. I have no idea. I don't really care to look into it. I will say that whoever they got to do the voices for these horrible puppet creatures, which I guess are based on the actual cards, the creatures on the cards, which were basically like Cabbage Patch Kids, but like darker and grimier and stuff. Like, there's one that's an alligator, keeps threatening to eat the child protagonist.
Don't even think about it.
Which is yet another problem here. It's surprising when I watch a movie with a child protagonist, and that's not my #1 complaint about it, but here we go. The child acting, and all the acting, is really bad, but it's just so overpowered by the horrendous puppet work of the Garbage Pail Kids, and their voice acting is just so gratingly horrible.
Oh, Wendy, totally uncool.
Although, I mean, maybe that would have been alright if there had been an actual plot to follow, but there really isn't. They just sort of do things. There's sort of a plot with the kid who's sort of chasing after this teenager who's selling clothes that look absolutely ridiculous. Apparently the puppets can sew really well and make goofy clothes that she's into, and there's a whole sort of plot there. But then they sort of come up with another plot about, like, a state home for the ugly, and there's this whole thing about ugliness is actually on the inside, and they're not actually ugly, they just look peculiar. But
We cannot choose the way we look, but we can choose the way we behave.
the thing is, all of the puppet characters are absolutely the worst possible things. Like, I mentioned the alligator one keeps trying to eat a child. I'm trying to think of what the other horrible things. Like, one of them carries a knife around and threatens a bunch of people with them. So that's also not great. What else do I remember about these dudes? Yeah, it's mostly the voices. It's like a horrible, like, scraping noise on a chalkboard or something. It's just impossible to listen to them.
Hi, I'm Valerie Bonnet.
And the fact that they're not doing anything, maybe if they were actually getting into situations that were interesting or funny, but it seems like they're just wandering around for most of the movie. Yeah, not much to say. I guess as far as the plot goes, you open the movie and they're in a giant trash can floating towards Earth or something. And then I assume that the main character's, I guess, guardian, who owns like a eccentric trinket store, happens to have this garbage pail in his store. It never says how he came across it or anything. There's really no background in this movie. They didn't want to go into that. He refers to it as Pandora's box, to never open it, and then I'm not sure remember how it gets opened. I guess a bunch of bullies are chasing down the child protagonist in the shop, and I guess something happens that releases them and then scares the bullies away. I think that's what happened. The details are fuzzy. In any case, I kind of wish that there had been anything to be like a saving grace of this movie. The guy who owns the trinket shop kind of strikes me as like a really low-budget version of Jeremy Irons a little bit. And yeah, he just never says anything of particular content. Every line he says seems like it could be put on a motivational poster of some sort. but it also doesn't mean anything in context. Like, he talks about how, like, ugliness is on the inside and all that when he's trying to reassure the puppet people, but he also wants to lock them back into the garbage pail and never, ever, ever release them again. So I don't know. It's weird. There's a bunch of bullies that dress like the most embarrassing 80s people of all time. They're all very shallow, but also the main bully guy is also really, like, violent, but never actually commits serious violence, like, against the protagonist. The child protagonist is, like, 12, and the rest of them are, like, late teens, almost 20s, so it's really weird already with that dynamic. What is there to say about this movie? It's really loud and obnoxious and bodily fluidy, lots of pee jokes.
Oh.
Oh, Nat.
I guess it's supposed to be just gross out humor is what they were going for, and it just is too repetitive and not. You can do gross out humor, but you've got to actually have a movie to put it in, and there's not much of a movie here. Like, I don't know what happened, if something happened with the script or something. This is something maybe worth reading into. I mean, there's got to be a story here. Too much of it feels like it doesn't have a story around it. Too many of the scenes feel like improv where they were forced into the movie. Like, maybe it wasn't long enough? I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's certainly not a movie I'll recommend. I am kind of shocked it's not in the bottom 100 anymore. It's only just outside of the list. It has like 0.1 score over what it would take to be down there. So I would be shocked if it got on there again. But yeah, this is worse than a number of movies I've seen in the bottom 100. Yeah, I just don't. I think I bought this for $1. Found it in a bargain bin somewhere. Kind of wish I'd left it there. Yeah. Really bad puppet work. Bad child acting. Bad acting. Really bad writing. Just, nah. Really repetitive. All's bad. All is bad about this movie. Yeah, I'm really trying to think, well, I usually when I watch a bad movie, I'm like, oh, but there was this one part. But, nah, not really. Nope, not thinking of any. Just bad. Just really bad. Garbage Pail Kids movie.
Once upon a time, or was it more recently, there was a young boy named Dodger. He was the sort of child who was always left out of things. Each day after school, Dodger works in a junk shop owned by the mysterious Captain Mancini.
Witch's broth and vampire's brew make these clothes as good as new.
Dodger has never had a family or a friend he could call his own. Until now.
What's that? They came out to help us.
Meet the Garbage Pail Kids.
Starring Nat Nurse, Windy Winston, Messy Tessie,
Give him a chance, Tangerine. You'll like it.
Alligator, Valerie Vomit, Lisa Gregg,
I'm gonna get fired for this.
Foul Phil,
Nice and it opens.
The Garbage Pail Kids movie. They may not be pretty, but boy, they make great friends. Starring Anthony Newley and Mackenzie Aston. The Garbage Pail Kids movie.